Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be looking at insulin and diabetes and some of the claims made by Bernie Sanders. A few months ago, he took a trip to Canada with diabetics to find some affordable insulin. And this was early last year. It was a wild ride full of emotion and turmoil, and a bit of heartbreak as well. We hear the stories of those doing it rough as they struggle to face the challenge of living with diabetes. I want to explore this issue in a little more depth and try to make some sense of the claims and understand what is really going on. This is not a new debate, it's been going on since at least 2015, and it's certainly going to rear its head in the future. People feel very strongly about this, and once again, it's an appeal to socialized medicine in the United States. So I'll begin by showing you the video, and we can see what Bernie Sanders is getting at. He can share his side of the story. If you want to find the video yourself, type in Bernie Sanders or Bernie 2020 insulin. It's interesting the options that come up from the usual suspects, the New York Times, Vox, and CNN.
Of America that I am paying so much for insulin. $1,000 got me 6 months of insulin for my son. And what's so incredible to me, I paid $1,000. You know, that's still less than what I pay a month in the United States. How can we be the greatest country and I am paying that much? How am I paying that much? $1,000, and it's still less than what I pay for 1 month.
That insulin retails me at a CVS in Minnesota $340. When
I tell people $340.
$340 for this vial.
And how long, roughly speaking, will this last you?
That will last me 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay, $340 for this, 1 to 2 weeks.
To keep me alive. And let's be very clear, for a type 1 and for some type 2, so 7.5 million Americans, this is their life support.
This is life or death.
This is life or death right here. This is not an optional medication.
You go over the Canadian border, what are you paying for the same product?
Depending on the pharmacy we go to in Canada, in US dollars, it's going to cost us between $26 and $30. About
So
12 times less.
This young man, for the quote-unquote crime of having diabetes, felt guilty about the financial burden you're placing on your family. Is that the case?
Exactly.
And you rationed
Exactly. I
your
rationed
insulin.
my insulin. I ate less. I did whatever I could. That way my family wouldn't have to keep sacrificing for me.
Did you hear that? We're talking about the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. All right, you ration your medicine, you ration your insulin. What impact that have on your
So,
body?
I mean, as Quinn spoke earlier, there was a DKA, diabetic ketone acidosis, essentially where you're eating your muscles and breaking them down. And so, being a college athlete, I suffered not only on the field but also in the classroom, and I wasn't able to take care of my body as I should have.
He only bought 1 vial of insulin and was trying to make that 1 vial of insulin last an entire month.
So what people are doing though, besides rationing insulin, they're also using the diabetes black market, because basically it's like this online community of old diabetics, which are trading and giving and donating diabetes supplies.
I keep thinking, how's he gonna pay for rent? How's he going to pay for utilities? How's he gonna live? I mean, so what do you sacrifice, living or life?
My dad does a lot of business in India as well. He goes to India and brings insulin back for me, almost in excess, because he knows he can get 4 times the amount there, and it's okay if 1 expires than even buying 1 from the U.S.
How do I meet paying tuition? How do I meet paying our household bills? How do I meet paying for the medicine that I have to keep my son alive? So we made hard decisions. You know, we say, okay, we'll not pay the electric bill this month, but we'll catch up next month.
It feels like you're robbing the pharmacy.
What did you end up paying, $36?
$36, but far cry from $340.
I think so. All right, good.
This here, Novolog, for us, costs $487 a month. And And here we're going to pay between $30 and $36 for this vial of insulin. So $720 for 6 months of insulin. $720 would not buy us 1 month of insulin. We're saving $10,000 today.
So they are paying here less than 1/10 of what they're paying in Indiana
Yes.
at a time when the manufacturers of insulin made $14.5 billion in profit last year. Now, why do our people pay far more for prescription drugs than people in other countries? Why are there no restrictions on what a drug company can charge? And why is it that tomorrow the medicine that you use may be doubled or tripled in price? So as Americans, what we have got to ask ourselves is, how come the same exact medicine, in this case insulin, is sold here in Canada for 1/10 of the price that it is sold in the United States? And it has everything to do with two factors. Number one, the incredible greed of the pharmaceutical industry. The three major manufacturers of insulin, and they control 90% of the market. And just coincidentally, it seems that they raise their prices at about the same rate at the same time. And the prices, Quinn, have gone up how much over the last many years?
20 years, it's gone up 1,200%.
1,200%, just coincidentally. All right? It is collusion, it is corruption, and it is greed.
People always say, "Oh, you're being too vocal." I don't feel I'm being vocal enough. We are not being vocal enough. When is enough enough? How many more?
Louder.
Yeah, we gotta get louder. How many kids are gonna have to make this sacrifice and die? Think how many had died because of this. I could have lost my son because of insurance and because of pharmaceutical, because of greed. I think, how can you sleep at night knowing that kids can't afford insulin? How is that possible?
Look, at the end of the day, it is an embarrassment for those of us who are Americans. We love our Canadian neighbors and we thank them so much, but we should not have to come to Canada to get the medicine we need for our kids to stay alive. We can do that in America. But what we need is a Congress and a president who is going to take on the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry.
I have to give it to Bernie Sanders. He's rather skilled in the art of propaganda on the issue of healthcare. It's the same story we've heard over and over again. Present one hard case, draw a comparison to another country, and blame the problem all on greed and corruption. The problem runs deeper than Bernie Sanders cares to share, and unfortunately he paints a one-sided picture. He doesn't tell the whole truth. A simple Google search is quite revealing. So how can it be that in the United States of America, I have to pay so much for insulin? This is the question that she asked, and I'm going to try to answer it today. It all began in 1921 by a scientific team at the University of Toronto and a young orthopedic surgeon with no laboratory experience. The team found a way to extract insulin from the animal pancreas from cows and pigs, and they were able to treat their first patient. To make a long story short here, since the first insulin was produced, there's been a number of innovations, such as converting bovine insulin into human insulin. Another innovation is using bacteria to actually grow human insulin. The current model in the United States, for example, allows for drug manufacturers to benefit for a time for their innovations, say 20 years or so, on a patent before generics come and take some of the share of the market. In theory, as more competition is introduced, more alternatives are available at varying costs. That hasn't been the case with insulin, largely due to the fact that new insulin products have been superior to the previous ones. The New England Medical Journal said, "No doubt for many patients, these incremental innovations were worth the added price. What's surprising is that the trailing edge of old insulin products did not generate a market for generic competition, but rather became a set of obsolete products that were promptly removed from the U.S. market. Pork and beef insulins are not merely underutilized, they are unavailable for human use in the United States. Any cost benefit that might be derived by using previous generations of insulin is non-existent in the United States. NPR reported that other forms of insulin, like those derived from animal products, are still available in places like Canada, and argues that the U.S. has been swayed by marketing newer insulin products that may not be better for every customer. The NPR states, quote, "In Canada, there actually still is an animal-derived insulin on the market, and that they cause less variability in blood sugar and fewer episodes of hypoglycemia," close quote. The NPR made this report in 2015 and also stated that prices for insulin are expected to fall due to patents expiring and the FDA approving biosimilar products. So when we see videos like Bernie Sanders going to Canada, we have to remember that the Canadian government limits the cost of drugs by vetting to see if the costs are too excessive. They also have alternative products like animal insulin, so we're not dealing with the same beast as we are in the United States. There doesn't appear to be any body limiting prices on drugs, but we do have the FDA, which puts a pinch on what can and cannot be sold on the market. It seems we have a greater emphasis in Canada on price, whereas in the US the FDA has an emphasis on safety of products entering the market. Both place limits on economic activity in the market, and we should take these things into consideration when we are comparing the system of the United States versus the system in Canada. Now, a lot of this information that I've given so far is from 2015, and Bernie's video is from 2019. As of 2019, one of the articles I mentioned made a correction at the bottom, noting that some customers responded to say that there was an insulin product available at Walmart for $25. This is in 2015. So even then, 2015, a few years ago, we had alternatives. Alternatives in the market that was not made clear. In this video, for example. I also did another search for buying insulin online and found at least one option at far below the price listed in Bernie Sanders' video. The vial of insulin costs $79 with a $35 shipping fee. The shipping takes between 2 and 3 days and is perfectly legal so long as a greater than 3-month supply is not held by the person. So $115 for insulin as an alternative in the market. Not to mention the $25 option at Walmart. So to suggest that there aren't at least some alternatives is not correct. And people with diabetes don't have to go directly to a black market. There is a perfectly legal market that is available to them in the US by purchasing medications and insulin in Canada directly to the United States. GoodRx, a website, also has a rather comprehensive breakdown of prices for different insulin products, and I'll show you those here. There are vials, injector pens, and inhaler forms of insulin, 3 different methods of delivery. There are also long-acting insulin options. Now, I'm not sure each person is different, and I'm sure each person is different, and a doctor will provide guidance on what is best for each person, but we can see there are quite a few options on the market at the moment. For example, having vials and needles can be costly in time, so the injector pens provide some added convenience, but at an added cost. As stated earlier, Bernie Sanders is skilled at creating a narrative that strikes at the heart of American people. We don't like to see our fellow countrymen struggle. We don't like to see them doing it tough. But to say the problem is as simple as greed doesn't go far enough. And we can't blatantly ignore the alternatives that are available on the market at the moment. Now, Eli Lilly is a manufacturer of insulin that I'm sure would be lumped into the category of greedy and corrupt corporation. But one thing that Bernie Sanders neglects to mention is the fact that even this company has alternatives for people who cannot afford their drugs. And some might consider it a token gesture, but at least it is there, and I think it is worth mentioning. And the company they have, the nonprofit organization they have, is called Lilly Cares. It's a nonprofit that provides care and support for those who have low incomes, and if a diabetic needs insulin or other products, they may be eligible to receive support from Lilly Cares. Now, as greedy as the company may be, they provide an option to help the poorest of those in the United States. Now, I don't want to make the same mistake I believe Republicans make. They will discredit the claims made by Bernie Sanders and others, but won't provide any practical solutions for people who are doing it tough. It's my view that we should do everything we can to help people in need, But as I've stated many times already, the debate is on how to best go about it. We need to educate people about their options as best we can. We need to tell that busload of people about the $25 alternative at Walmart, or the online ordering system they can use to save them a bus trip to Canada. If there are adjustments that can be made to patent laws to limit the evergreening and perpetual monopolies on products, we should look at that. We should also encourage entrepreneurship in a spirit of people that can tackle these problems head on rather than appealing to government and to Bernie Sanders to save the day with socialized medicine.